to another episode of Nass the Pod Season 4. On today's episode, I break down basically my finalized, for right now, NBA title hierarchy, which is, in other words, my NBA power pool, my NBA power rankings. It's basically an assessment of all 30 teams of the NBA. I break them down into multiple categories, from the weakest links in the NBA to the NBA's like prime title candidates. And basically at this point of the season, we're approaching the All-Star break. We have enough data, enough sample size to really see who we should take serious this year, who should probably be looking forward to the draft, looking forward to the year coming up. Before I deep dive into that, I want to spend a couple minutes showing some love to the Portland Trailblazers, who have been pretty impressive as of late, led by head coach Chanucey Billups. The Portland Trailblazers, they've won 10 of their last 12 games, including wins against the Milwaukee Bucks, 2 wins against the Phoenix Suns, the Sacramento Kings, the Miami Heat, 2 more wins against the Orlando Magic and the Indiana Pacers. In that same span, they're 13th in net and they're 3rd in defensive rating, so they've been doing it, getting stops on the other end. Their 5-man lineup of Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons, Denny Advia, Toumani Camara, and Donovan Clingan. They've been a astounding plus 63.1 net in that same span. They have 2 change of pace guards that have been impacting the floor. Scoot Henderson, who's been a great floor raiser for them, a great secondary point guard. He's averaging 14 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists in that span on 48% from the field, 42 from 3, and 82 from the line. I mentioned those metrics because last year, for those of you that weren't aware, Scoot Henderson was one of the most inefficient basketball players last year. I'm not going to spend too much time dwelling on that, but he's a lot more comfortable. He's a lot more settled in, and sometimes you see this with first-year guys. Sometimes, regardless of how high they were taken, and whether it was, high in the lottery or early in the second round or mid first, situations do matter, coaching, infrastructure, all that stuff does, go into this. So I wanted to really shout out this squad. They've really just been playing well. Scoot Henderson, to add on to that, he's shooting 42% on threes in the new year, 59.7 effective field goal percentage on pull-up jump shots, 48% on 3-point pull-up jump shots in that same span. 75 total field goal attempts, so it's a little skewed compared to the high volume guys, but still a real bright spot, considering, this was literally one of the most efficient basketball players last year by the metrics. Combo guard Shaedon Sharpe, who I think was starting earlier this year. Chauncey made a late switched him to the bench, and it's not even like Shaedon's a bench player. I'm not sure if Billups is saying, hey, you're gonna be a 6-man, or this is gonna be your destined role, for the foreseeable future, in your career. But I do think in terms of just allocating touches from Anthony Simons, who, they're still figuring out, they have a lot of guys who can, shot create, initiate for others. But with Anthony Simons being, obviously you're, the best guy at that right now for you, you definitely would just have him start and then trying to, allocate the touches and the shots to the second unit. So I think that's what Billups has done, phenomenally with Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe. Shaedon Sharpe shooting 51.1 effective field goal percentage on pull-up jump shots and 37.7 3-point percentage on 3-point pull-up jump shots in that span. That's currently better than Tatum, Dame, Tyrese Maxey, Tyler Hero, Shai Gilgeous, and Trae Young. So Shaedon Sharpe has, he's taken a step. And I know injuries have they've kind of gone his way a little bit. You obviously would like to have seen this sooner, but I mean, you'll take it. You'll take the numbers for the numbers for sure. He's playing a really good brand of basketball. He reminds me a lot of Zach LaVine. He reminds me a lot of Vince Carter. A guy that can, obviously we know he can play above the rim. He can just put a lot of pressure on, paint bigs and, defenses in the paint. But it's now the game is starting to slow down. He's starting to pick his spots. He's very comfortable around like the elbow area, the free throw area. His handle's just a lot more fluid. He's just a lot more comfortable. You can just see it when you watch them. And, you know, they've just been competing. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I was, and I think I mentioned this on one of my, if you have my Nass nassthepod Instagram, like, you know, every other night or so, or once or twice a week, I'll put on my NBA League Pass games of the night. And the Trailblazers have been on a couple of those games for numerous reasons. Just because, you know, last year, I think there was a tiny stretch where like Shaedon Sharpe was playing really, really well. And I was like, oh man, is this guy going to turn the corner? And I spent a couple minutes last year talking about a potential leap from him. And then, of course, he got hurt after that. So it's good to see him healthy. It's good to see him being productive. And, you know, I honestly see this potentially being his team, him and Scoot. You know, if we were really to look under the microscope, I can see them moving off Anthony Simons just because of where he is in his career. And he's not like much older than those guys, but I still think he's probably the Trailblazers' best asset. And I don't see them giving him, you know, a long-term contract and stuff like that, especially where they are in the West. I definitely see them potentially moving off of him at some point. Shout out to DeAndre Ayton. That's a guy that I've been out on basically since last year, like most of the popular vote. But, you know, this year especially as of late, he's been playing very well. I don't have it listed right here, but in the new year, he's been in like 3 of the top 5 like most productive lineups for them. So he's been really, really playing well. Toumani Camara, I've been super impressed with him. He's basically like a Nick Claxton that can shoot the 3 ball. He can defend a bunch of positions. And that's the best part about him. Because he can stretch the floor, you don't have to play him at the 5. You can play him next to a guy like Ayton or a guy like Clinnigan, guys that are, you know, basically going to operate inside 15 feet and really just hold that paint presence. So I've been super, super impressed with Camara. They still have Jeremy Grant, who is making a significant amount of money. I didn't write down when Grant's deal is up, but Anthony and Grant, those are 2 guys I can see them potentially moving off of. Just because those guys are making a decent chunk of money. Not really sure if the Blazers see them, you know, down the road as a long-term asset. Even a guy like Delano Ben, who was a wing that the Celtics had recently, and we just didn't have any minutes for him. Obviously with Brown and Tatum and all these other bench guys. But he's gone to Portland, and he's been good. So shout out to Delano Ben. I've always, you know, been a fan of the way he plays. I thought he was just raw in Boston. I just felt like he always had, you know, more to give. Ben is a little bit similar to like Aaron Nesmith, another like guard wing guy that can do a couple things on the floor that we just kind of had to pull the plug on. We were in such a rapid direction for winning basketball that we didn't really have patience for projects necessarily. So we used some of those assets to really improve the team. But Delano Benton, Aaron Nesmith, those are 2 guys that, you know, they came to Boston and they really worked their tail off. So I always, you know, salute to them and wish them the best on their journeys. But Delano Benton, I'm just glad to see that he's kind of a part of this Portland, you know, uprise. So yeah, the Portland Trailblazers, I've just been watching them a couple of times. I watched a good amount of tape today, you know, taking notes, crunching the metrics and stuff like that. And I've just been really impressed with the way they play basketball. And they use each other. It's not a 1-man or 2-man show. Like it's a real roster that's 7-8 guys deep that really do play for each other. So shout out to Chanucey Billups, Mr. Big Shot, getting the team to really turn it around. I think he's really done a good job. For my NBA title hierarchy, I have the power poll basically broken into 6 categories. I'm going to start from, you know, the weakest links up. But the 6 categories are driving to June, contender spoilers, quote unquote, Nass, please don't doubt us, here for vibes, I don't know, and next season / Cooper Ace sweepstakes. So basically, you know, the Cooper Flag Ace Bailey sweepstakes. So those teams. So I'm going to start off with let's see. Starting off with the quote-unquote next season Cooper / Ace sweepstakes. We have the Utah Jazz, New Orleans Pelicans, Charlotte Hornets, Washington Wizards, Brooklyn Nets, and the Toronto Raptors. So I'm just going to say something quickly about each team. I'm just going to run through these before we get to the real big dogs. So the Utah Jazz, bottom of the West. I think they're like second to worst in the West. Isaiah Collier, he's averaging 8.5 assists over his last 20 games. I believe that is the first time a player in Jazz franchise history has averaged that mark over a 20-game span. He took Keontae George's point guard spot. I don't think that's a slight on Keontae George because Collier hasn't shot the ball well enough to kind of pull the plug on Keontae George, but I think they expected a little bit more from Keontae George going into this year. But and Keontae George has still, been very productive off the bench, but I think Collier's, approach to the game, the way he's just been able to elevate his teammates and kind of run the show over there, I just feel like they kind of gave him the keys. But I can see this team starting both of them at some point. I don't think it's one of those things where they're deciding whose team it is. I think it's one of those things where they're trying to get Keontae George in a rhythm, but they're also, basically rewarding Collier for the way he's played this season. So shout out to Isaiah Collier, a guy from USC, played next to Bronny. He was basically USC's best player last year, but no one's really talked about him, obviously. So shout out to him. The New Orleans Pelicans, Trey Murphy. He has the most improved player locked. He had back-to-back 40 balls against the Boston Celtics and the Denver Nuggets. The Pelicans recently moved off of Brandon Ingram. I think one reason that they were comfortable doing so is just, the ascendance of Trey Murphy. And really all it is everyone knew that he could shoot and he could defend. But his in-between game, him being able to put the ball on the ground, create, initiate for others, he's just kind of taken off. So I'm not really sure where they're going as a whole because they have so many injuries. They lost DeJounte Murray to the Achilles injury. Zion, he's back now, but even to this point, he hasn't, maintained the health that you wish he would. They just have a lot of pieces. You got CJ McCollum, who's getting a little older. You probably would think, you're trying to tank, get younger. You'd probably flip him at some point. He's been pretty good this year. CJ McCollum has had some, groundbreaking scoring outrages. But yeah, it's tough to tell where the Pelicans are going. I would just say, I guess find a way to tank. I didn't see myself talking about the Pelicans in this spot this year, but it is what it is. The Charlotte Hornets, LaMelo, another injured ankle. I'm starting to have some real worries. This is starting to get into early Steph Curry territory before he became Steph Curry, where, he had a couple of these ankle injuries, ankle surgeries. I don't know if it's the Pumas. I don't know if it's his style of play. I don't know if it's just freak accidents, but he just continues to roll his ankle and roll his ankle and roll his ankle. I'm not even sure which ankle it is. I think he's rolled both. I think he's hurt both before. I think he's really only gone to procedure on one of them, but, it's a little alarming because that's your franchise guy. They gave him this big bag last year, and, got that big bag. He came out this year playing outstanding to start the year. I know his shooting percentage have started to tick down a little bit. He's coming back down to earth, but he's still one of the best point guards in the league for sure, and he's been one of the best players in the league. I think that's pretty evident. The Washington Wizards, I actually have something I'm looking forward to for the Washington Wizards. A.J. Johnson, a guy they recently acquired in the Kyle Kuzma trade, sending him to Milwaukee and receiving Chris Middleton, A.J. Johnson, and I think a pick or something. I forget what the package was altogether, but A.J. Johnson, the Bucks' first-round pick. I talked about him in my NGSC rookie piece, where I basically talked about my 5 most intriguing rookies. I think I listed 6, but A.J. Johnson was a part of that group. A.J. Johnson, Bilal Coulibaly, Jordan Poole, Bub Carrington, another member of that rookie piece that I wrote about way back. I just like those 4 players. And I know these are 3 guards, and Bilal could really pass for a 2 guard, but he's really kind of like a wing because he can guard multiple positions. I like the team. I'm not gonna lie to you. I like the team. These are young kids that are just, getting really established in the league. Bub Carrington is already shooting one of the best mid-range metrics in the league. Takes a ton of mid-range shots, hits a good amount. He's only a teenager. I'm still shocked. I don't know how polished he is at this age. He just amazes me. The Wizards, along with the Blazers, have been a team that I found myself putting on my television, in the evening. So going forward, not really sure. They could really use a wing. Like if they could get like an Ace Bailey, a Cooper Flag, like that would be really promising. But right now, it's kind of the Jordan Poole show. Kyle Kuzma wasn't playing well at all in Washington. Not really sure why, especially because he turned down trade offers last year to stay and build something in Washington. Didn't turn out to be the case. Now he's in Milwaukee, so good luck to him. The Brooklyn Nets. I actually don't have anything listed for this. I don't even know what direction they're going in. I just don't know. I literally wrote IDK for the Brooklyn Nets. And it's crazy because I actually have an IDK category in this, tighter hierarchy. I probably should have put the Nets in there because I just don't know what they're doing. I literally, I don't know how many times I can, repeat myself. But yeah, I have no idea what they're doing. The Toronto Raptors just signed Brandon Ingram to a 3-year, $120 million deal after trading for him from New Orleans. I know Toronto, from a roster standpoint, is not particularly, no one's drooling over this roster. I understand that. But what I will say is that Brandon Ingram, he works best next to defensive wings. So next to guys like Herb Jones. You had Trey Murphy, who was a defensive guy. You had Dyson Daniels before, he ended up in Atlanta, defensive guys. Brandon Ingram is a guy that needs the ball in his hands. I wouldn't call him a master at all three levels, but he's very commanding at all three levels. Not the most prolific three-point shooter, but you definitely don't want to leave him open. Definitely a part of his game that is starting to really progress. People don't like Brandon Ingram. I'm not sure why. I think I'm just so stuck on that 2021 first round against Phoenix and just seeing him just tear apart that Phoenix defense against Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges. Like, I still have that memory just in the back of my brain, and I just hold on to it so tight. But Brandon Ingram, he's made an all-star game. He's really talented. He's definitely a lot further along in the half-court game than Scottie Barnes. Scottie Barnes is a hell of a player, too. Pretty much does everything you need. He'll score the ball, he can rebound, he can defend, he can play make, he can run the floor. Good athlete, good size. He's like 6'10", 6'11", guards probably 1 through 5. Honestly, he's a really, really, really promising player. And I think, obviously, that's why the Raptors paid him so early. But pairing Brandon Ingram next to Scottie Barnes, now that's something that makes sense. Now it's like, okay, now we can go get, a guard here, or we can go get a big man here. Those are your two wings. Clearly, those are your two wings of the future. You decide to pay both those guys. Now you can see how the roster will look like over the next, 3-4 years, given draft capital, your picks, and stuff like that. Not really sure what they're picking this year in the draft, or if they have their own pick. I'm not sure if they gave it away in a trade or anything, but I like it. I like Brandon Ingram and Scottie Barnes together. I'm basically saying that makes sense. So that's it for that category. The next category, I don't know. I have two teams. I did mention that I should have added the Brooklyn Nets to this category, but that's whatever. I have the Philadelphia 76ers and the Atlanta Hawks. Philadelphia 76ers, Tyrese Maxey, kind of an underlying all-star candidacy. He has been lights out in the new year since January 1st. He's 31 points, basically, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists since January 1st. Embiid just came back. In fact, Embiid, before I started taping this, I'm pretty sure he just turned the ball over in the clutch. I didn't see the clip, but I scrolled through Instagram real quick before I taped, saw the caption. I don't know. And I also heard a couple days ago that he's going to need another knee procedure in the offseason. So it's tough being a Philly fan right now, at least a Philadelphia 76ers fan. You're a Philly Eagles fan, shout out to the Eagles, shout out to Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, the Super Bowl win. But Philadelphia 76ers, tough, really tough spot. Not sure what they're doing. The Paul George thing has been a mess too. He's just in a different point of his career. I've accepted it. Someone that has been rooting for Paul George for a little bit. And, I like the way he plays basketball as well. it's tough. Sometimes guys can't be Father Prime. Some guys just aren't LeBron or they aren't Kevin Durant. Excuse me. We even saw Steph Curry at some moments. We were wondering like, hey, is this guy at another point in his career? And he's been going off lately too, so he's kind of beat the allegations. But yeah, Paul George clearly in another phase of his career. A lot of people are trolling him for the potting. Injuries, that happens. Guys 6'8", 6'7", not going to play till you're 35, 36 at an all-star level, like, guys like LeBron, like KD. So, still shout out to Paul George. Still been a hell of a career. He's had a lot of humility, too, lately. I know he talked about he doesn't know if he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame and all this stuff. And I feel for him. Like, I mean, actually, I really shouldn't feel for him. He's making a ton of money. So, I mean, it is what it is. I just feel bad for Philly fans because Philly fans are very genuine fans that actually care about their sport teams. They're a lot like Boston. So, seeing them go through this, I was actually excited for them. I thought the Paul George role was perfect for them. Someone that can defend a little bit, shoot the 3-ball, take some, playmaking duties off of Maxey. I just thought PG was the perfect complementary piece for a Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid duo. The perfect guy. But it just turns out that he just can't be Father Prime. So, kind of stinks. So that's for that category. Next category, here for the vibes. This category, I have 4 teams. I have the Detroit Pistons, the Sacramento Kings, the Chicago Bulls, and the Portland Trailblazers. So I already talked about the Portland Trailblazers, so I'll just skip them real quick. The Detroit Pistons, Cade Cunningham. I believe Cade Cunningham is, I don't even know how to categorize this, or what to label him as, but whatever you get from Luka Doncic, LeBron James as a commanding 3-level scorer, playmaker, initiator, I think that's Cade Cunningham. I think that he is the next in line for that. He's just been amazing this year. I talked about him potentially starting for my Eastern Conference backcourt. Asar Thompson, who has been one of the best defenders in the league already. He's still, obviously coming back from his health issues in the offseason. I know he's still developing. It's his second year. I mean, his brother Amin has, kind of hit the ground running, but Asar's in a lot more different role, and then Amin's more of a closer to a guard than a forward. Asar is literally a forward, but he's shown some real athletic gifts, just running the floor, defending all sorts of different players and positions. Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley, they're both shooting over 40% from 3. I'm pretty sure Malik Beasley I think he just got the franchise record for single season 3-pointers made in a year. So, the Pistons, they're here for vibes. The Pistons are pretty sure they're only a half game out of the 5th seed. They're going to face someone in the Eastern Conference and give them like a game or two. I don't know who it's going to be, whether it's Cleveland or New York or Milwaukee or one of these teams, but they're looking like a real threat. And by threat, I mean, someone that's going to keep you honest. They might not, who knows, they might take you 7 games. I actually think that's how dangerous Cade is. Like, Cade is like this much closer to reaching that, superstardom status. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a coming out party this spring. I really wouldn't be shocked. That's just how much he's progressed and developed with his jump shot, scoring at all 3 levels. His playmaking is still, off the charts. I'm pretty sure he's like 4th or 5th in assists per game. Turnovers are still a little bit high, but when you think about the team he's playing with, the attention he gets, you gotta have some. With the guy that has the ball in his hands that much, you gotta find some balance in that. So yeah, that's the Detroit Pistons. The Sacramento Kings. Malik Monk has taken over the point guard duties from my man De'Aaron Fox. Shout out my Kentucky guard legends. They reunited Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, which I think is kind of a big deal because now you don't need to rely on Domantas Sabonis to chip in that 20 points. Now you've got 2 legit scorers. I know DeRozan's older than LaVine by a little bit, but both 2 guards that know one thing, and that's to score the basketball. So when you combine the shooting and, the dribble handoffs with Sabonis, Monk, who I don't think I've ever seen this before, a 6-man microwave combo guard who's now carved out a career as a starting point guard for an NBA team. I don't think I've ever seen it in my time watching the league. Shout out to my man Monk. The Kings are 8th in points per game. 8th in points per game. They recently traded for Jake LaRavia. Jake LaRavia was a very productive complementary piece off the bench amidst all the injuries that, the Memphis Grizzlies were suffering. Whenever Desmond Bane was missing a game, when Vince Williams was going through his injury woes, even John Morant. When all those guys were up and down in injuries, Jake LaRavia was really one of the guys that, Taylor Jenkins was utilizing to patch up things. And he's going to rebound. He's going to defend. Shoots the ball pretty well. Not at a high volume, but he shoots it pretty effectively. So I'm glad the Kings got him because now you have him. You have Trey Lyles. You got Keegan Murray. You're starting to really round out your forward personnel. And I actually think LaRavia can defend a little bit. I actually think he's a real defender. So I'm excited that he's in Sacramento because they're just gonna play him. They're gonna tell him to go do these certain things, and he's gonna be pretty effective. And I'm pretty sure they're 2-0 since they acquired him. So, granted, those were 2 weak teams. I'm pretty sure they beat the Blazers and the Mavs. But wins are wins, especially in the Western Conference. So, it said the Kings are here for vibes because I do think that they're going to. They might push a game. I mean, right now they're, I believe, 8th or 9th in the Western Conference play-in. They're gonna do some things. They're definitely gonna do some things. 8th in scoring. The thing is, they're gonna be able to score against any team. That's where I feel like the Kings are actually gonna really take off is their ability to score in the half court, whether the tempo is slowed down or it's picking up. I just think they have too many dynamic bucket guys that they're gonna be able to keep up with a lot of the West teams. And you never know if they get hot like they were hot 2 weeks ago, even right before they traded Fox. And most of that stretch where they won 10 of their 11 games, Fox was actually hurt. So, the Kings have already shown that they can really, they can put together some wins. So, depending on the schedule, if they can get some momentum into the All-Star break, we'll see. We'll see if they can play themselves out of the play-in. The Chicago Bulls. I have them here for vibes, but I honestly probably should have put them in the I don't know category. Atas Buselis, hopefully I pronounced your name right, brother, but he was also a rookie that I wrote about for my NGSC Intriguing Rookies piece. He's had increased playing time basically since Levine left. He's been double figures in points the past 6 games. They held on to Lonzo. They still have Josh Giddey. I still think they have a logjam. They got Ayo Dosunmu, and they still have Kobe White. 4 guards, kind of all need the ball in their hands. 2 of those guys are true point guards in Giddey and Lonzo. Giddey's been better than Lonzo. Granted, Lonzo is still getting his feet wet after being out for so long. But I'm not really sure what direction they're going in either because those 4 guards, I think they need to move off one of them. And you would think Lonzo would be the one because he's older. But maybe teams were nervous about where he was in his progressing from all the knee stuff. But yeah, I had the Chicago Bulls. And then to round out that category, I had the Portland Trailblazers. Next category is called, quote unquote, Nass, please don't doubt us. We have the Los Angeles Clippers, the Indiana Pacers, the Phoenix Suns, the Dallas Mavericks, the San Antonio Spurs, the Golden State Warriors, the Miami Heat, and the Orlando Magic. Starting off with the Clippers. The Clippers just traded for Ben Simmons. I actually kind of like the move. Not going to lie to you guys. Kind of like the move. I don't think James Harden and Kawhi Leonard would sign off on this if they didn't think he could help them in any shape or form. They don't rebound the ball very well. And they don't... I don't want to say they don't pass. They do use each other. They pass. But they don't... Their buckets aren't often from assists. Sort of say, I think they're bottom 10 in assists per game. And I think they're also bottom 10 in rebounds per game. Ben Simmons definitely helps that, especially in the second unit. Not sure if he's going to be starting or not, but he's a guy that, and I'm nervous about his aggressiveness, his consistency at looking at the basket because he's just been a complete different version of Ben Simmons as the Ben Simmons that we saw in Philly that made an All-NBA team, and made these All-Star games. Definitely a different Ben Simmons. But what I will say is the infrastructure, the situation he was in, it's not like he was coming to save Brooklyn. He's in a much, much, much more ideal situation with Kawhi, James Harden, and Kawhi is definitely still working his way back. I think he's only like 16, 17 a game in the new year. You got to give him time. It's either that or maybe he's also in a different, phase of his career. We're not sure. I think the Ben Simmons addition definitely helps because it definitely gives the Clippers another guy who can dribble the ball outside of Norman Powell and James Harden. Someone that can screen and short roll. He can pass out of it. He can find guys like Zubac, find guys like Norman Powell, Kawhi roaming around on cuts. So that part really intrigues me, and obviously his ability to rebound. He's still going to rebound 7-8 boards a game. So I definitely like that addition. Norman Powell is pretty much their best scorer right now, if you look at the metrics. Not just points per game, like across the board. He's their most dependable scorer. Doesn't get the same coverages that James Harden gets. If roles were reversed, it'd be probably a different conversation. But yeah, he's their best shooter right now. The Clippers are third in points allowed too, so they do get stops. I honestly, this is another reason why I was a fan of the Ben Simmons acquisition, is they have this guy in Jeff Van Gundy. And, I got this from, Bill Simmons. Shout out Bill Simmons. Van Gundy is basically the DC, the defensive coordinator for the Clippers. So he's manning all these coverages, these rotations, the blitzes, all that stuff. Ben Simmons used to be a promising defensive player. I just want to see it. I want to see what Stan does with Ben. And they're already third in points allowed. Their pace is not there, obviously, with Harden. If you're bringing in Simmons to kind of find that balance with other scorers off the bench, you might have a little uptick in pace on offense, while also not giving up too much on defense. So that's really the sole reason why I'm a fan of the move. So I definitely want to see what they look like going forward for sure. The Indiana Pacers, Tyrese Halliburton, his numbers are down. It's become a common theme for the Olympic guys. A lot of their numbers have been up and down. But, they're still 10th in offensive rating. They still move the ball, phenomenally. They use each other. It's not a one-man show. It's not overly dependent on two guys to carry the offensive load. Siakam is just running up and down. Career year, shooting the three ball well. He made the All-Star team. I didn't vote him as an All-Star, but, congrats to him, made the All-Star team. The only reason why I'm saying please don't doubt us is just because of what they did last year in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Being able to beat the Knicks. Granted, the Knicks were, really, really hurt. And then, giving the Celtics a really, really, really good series. A really good series. They gave the Celtics a lot of business. So, I felt like this was the right category for them. Not sure they have enough talent to go to the next level, but I definitely want to show them a little respect. Next, the Phoenix Suns. KD trade rumors. Now, everyone knows that I've talked about the Suns extensively since last season. Not even since last season. Since even before last season. Even before Beal even got there. But, it's just another chapter in this weird, Big Three tenure in the desert. The KD trade rumors are very odd. Steph Curry spinning the block and calling for KD again. I'm not going to call it weird because KD is like that baddie in your class that every guy wants, clearly, because every team just continues to ask for him, whether he's under contract or not under contract. They just call for him. I don't know. I'm not really sure why the Suns were even fielding calls, but when you look at the business side of things with how great he is and where they are, they're in cap hell right now with the second apron just because of this Bradley Beal deal. I guess you can understand why they would potentially field some offers just because some teams are desperate enough that they would, give up that, luxurious capital just to have KD in their town. That just shows you how dependable of a scorer he is. Some teams just need that additional 25, 26 point per game guy. And Durant's better than that. But just the fact that they took the call, I know that pained him because he's just trying to find a home. You know what I mean? And this is what was going on in Brooklyn. He thought he was going to stay in Brooklyn. But things transpired there. He comes to Phoenix. And I'm pretty sure even when he wanted to leave Brooklyn, I think the list was down to just Phoenix and Miami. So that's tough. The Booker All-Star snub, kind of tough. His numbers have been like everyone's gonna look back on it and realize like, damn, like Devin Booker was really really good that year. I don't know. I'm not sure. I can't get a read on this team. The only reason why they're in this category is because I've seen Kevin Durant and Devin Booker just basically I've seen them embarrass teams, in the playoffs before. I've seen them go at it with the Clippers. I've seen them go at it with the Denver Nuggets. Those two guys are pretty capable of just going on a heater for 2 weeks, you know, regardless of, what players are around them. Bol Bol has been getting minutes recently. I'm keeping an eye out on that. And I want an explanation as to why he wasn't getting minutes earlier this season. But, I'm going to have to go back and watch some games. I know they're facing the Memphis Grizzlies right now. An underlying issue with the Phoenix Suns, obviously everyone pointing the finger at Bradley Beal potentially being a sixth man, but no one is paying attention to some of the mid-performances that Tyus Jones is having. And I like Tyus Jones. I actually thought that he was going to come on this team, average 8-9 assists, run a well-oiled machine of an offense. I thought this offense would be a top 5 offense in the league, all that stuff. They're like 11th in offensive rating, not too far off, especially given the injuries. But I don't think people understand that, like, when you have 3 scorers in Beal, Booker, and Durant, and then you got one guy in Tyus running the show, and you try to start all 4 of those guys, there's gonna be one guy that's not getting his shots, and that's Beal. And now Beal's numbers in the box score don't look that eye popping when they go against good teams. And obviously he hasn't been the most healthy asset either. But when you think about it, he's just the 4th guy. You're already asking him to be the 3rd option. Now you're asking him to have the 4th least touches in the starting lineup, and you're having Jones run the whole thing. Tough. Now I understand he'll probably get more shots off the bench, and he's been really good off the bench. Overall, he's been shooting the ball well. I had a conversation on Instagram comparing Austin Reeves to Bradley Beal, and if you look at the metrics, like Bradley Beal's been just as productive. He's shooting the ball in all facets superior than Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves is just in a great situation next to LeBron James. He was next to Anthony Davis. Good infrastructure. Able to kind of, come and go. He was even next to D'Angelo Russell for a period of time. So situations matter. And I just feel for Bradley Beal. Obviously, everyone knows that he's making $50 million a year. But what did people really expect when he signed that deal back in, 2020, 2021, when the Wizards gave him that deal? What did they expect? He had earned that deal given the time he spent in Washington, made a couple All-NBAs, a couple All-Stars, averages 30 for a couple years, and boom, there you go. There's your Supermax. That's just how these things go. But, you go on Discourse and all these different platforms, they're talking about him like he's just some guy from Planet Fitness. Like, no, this is a guy that accomplished certain things to earn this contract. This is the same thing with Jaylen Brown. He's a member of the team for 8 years. He was drafted here, hits all these benchmarks, and then they did, he's eligible for a Supermax. You're going to see it with Jaren Jackson Jr. He's hitting all these benchmarks. He's going to make an All-Star team. He's probably going to make an All-NBA team, maybe Defensive Player of the Year. And then the Grizzlies, he's going to be eligible for a lucrative contract. That's just how these things go. So, Tyus Jones, I don't think there's been enough light on Tyus Jones taking touches out of Bradley Beal's hands. And, I probably should have expected that, him being the point guard, but it looks like that's even made it even more difficult for Beal to get in a rhythm in the starting lineup. Compared to last year where you had Booker or Durant, maybe they were initiating things, or Beal and Booker taking turns as the point guard. So it's, Beal has just been tossed around, man, just playing all these different roles, and I feel for him. I really feel for him, but he's been playing well. Like, the Phoenix Suns have more problems than just Bradley Beal. And, when you take on an asset like that, you knew he had a trade clause in his contract. Those are things you just have to think about when you're thinking about the long-term future and now picks. So they got Nick Richards. They're just outside the play-in. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure they're a half game out. I think the Warriors right now have the 12th spot. So I'm not really sure what to expect from, Phoenix. Let's see if they get hot. Durant just returned from his ankle sprain. I think he's supposed to hit 30K soon. So let's see what Phoenix can do. I'm hoping they at least make the playoffs. Like, that'd be a catastrophe if they weren't able to make the playoffs. I can't even believe we're talking about them in this light right now. So, yeah. Dallas Mavericks. Kyrie side story. Kyrie gets traded to Dallas. And, that second half that they had with Luka was, a bit alarming. But they didn't have the competent guys next to them. They didn't have the Lively. They didn't have the P.J. Washington, the Najee Marshalls, the Dante Exums. They didn't have those competent complementary pieces to uplift them and them to make the playoffs that first half season when Kyrie, made his way to Dallas. Next season comes by. They go to the finals. This season comes by. Luka's hurt, and then Luka gets traded. Kyrie obviously has no idea about this. They get Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis gets hurt in his first game. Daniel Gafford just sprained his knee last night. Derek Lively had already actually got hurt a month prior. They don't have any bigs. Now they're running out like 3-4 guard lineups. I actually do like Max Christie. Max Christie is becoming one of my favorite players in the NBA. I love what he does on the floor. Like, he is just a perfect plug-in guy. Like, perfect plug-in guy. I'm just proud of him. I'm proud of Max Christie. This Dallas team would be a bona fide playoff team, probably a top 5, top 4 West team if they just had Anthony Davis. And that's why I feel for Kyrie, just because, he's been given what was expected of him this year. He's exceeded expectations. Like, he's been playing without Luka most of the year, 24, 5-5, almost a 50, 40, 90 guy, makes the All-Star team. I mean, he's entirely the reason why the Mavs they have the 7th best offensive rating. I mean, Luka just hasn't been available. He just hasn't. I think he's played like 12 games for the Mavs. So, yeah, I really feel for him, but I kept them in this category, just because I like their bench. I like their depth. Dante Exum, I mentioned P.J. Washington, Najee Marshall, Klay Thompson, Hardy. Obviously the Lively Gafford combos, that was one of the reasons why they made it to the finals last year, is they had that luxury of having 2 bigs. They could have a big on the floor at all times that could protect the rim and rebound the ball effectively. So, yeah, I just feel bad for Kyrie. Even him, he has a bulge in his back that he's recovering from right now. So, I feel for him. Hopefully, I think right now they're 9th in the West, I believe. But, everyone is really within a half game of each other. So, we'll see what they can do. The San Antonio Spurs, 2-1 since acquiring De'Aaron Fox. Stephon Castle, I was shocked that they were able to keep that asset in that Fox trade. Beyond shocked. I thought either him or Devin Vassell was for sure on their way out if they were to acquire Fox. They were able to keep both. I don't know. I guess that says more about, my GM skills compared to others. But I think I'm definitely getting back Stephon Castle if I'm, the Sacramento Kings. But, hey, is what it is. I like this Spurs team. I like that Fox gives them a different dimension, speeds up the pace, can get to the rim, relentlessly. Just a very, very polished, progressed 3-level scorer now. His 3-ball is not, where you want it to be, but it's definitely very serviceable. You don't want to leave him open. He's definitely a guy that can hit 5 in a game if you just give him the space, or if you leave him open, or if you just dare him to shoot. And the biggest W of this all is that Wemby gets to get easier buckets. I think that's just very important. A guy that, he's doesn't have the strongest base yet. He's not someone as a post technician. He's basically a wing that is 7'2" or whatever he is, something crazy, 7'6", whatever. He's basically Kevin Durant. Like, that's just how he operates. He's gonna shoot threes. He's gonna shoot pull-ups. He's gonna pick and pop. He's gonna shoot little runners. Like, that's just how he operates. And then, with his height, he's gonna get all these rebounds. He's gonna block shots. He's a phenomenal defender already. He's gonna be a DPOI perennial guy like the rest of his career, definitely the rest of his prime. So, I love that. I just love that Fox is now in a position that CP3 is going to be able to mentor him. I think that's going to be huge, because if you don't remember, CP3, when he was in OKC next to Shai Gilgeous and Dennis Schroeder in that weird 3-guard lineup that made the playoffs, and they actually almost beat the Rockets in that opening first round in the bubble. But yeah, I think Fox is going to soak up a ton of game from CP3, and I think that's going to be huge. Fox is already a two-way player, a guy that not known for his playmaking, but plays defense, gets in the passing lanes. I think he led the league in steals last year, tied with Shai Gilgeous. He is a bucket. He's a bucket. He's so quick that it's hard to beat him to his spot. And even if you do beat him to his spot, he's so quick enough he can get right into another counter, or he can go lay it up, or he has this Euro step. He's a floater. Like, he's just a really, really polished offensive scorer right now. Very underrated. People forget he had a 60-point game like earlier this season. So yeah, Fox is one of those guys. He didn't make the All-Star team just because, being in Sacramento and all the guards in the West. But he's having a great year. He's having a really great year, and I can't wait to see what he does in San Antonio. San Antonio is one team out of all the teams I listed in this tier, wouldn't want to face them right now. Because you have a bona fide top 20 guy in Wemby. You have another top 20 guy in Fox. CP3's, veteran leadership. You have a first-year guy in Steph Castle that is ready to go. Like, he is fearless. Very fearless. Devin Vassell hit a couple shots for you. Sokan. I like this team. I really do like the Spurs. I'm going to try to watch as many Spurs games as I can the rest of the year. Continued on the Nass Please Don't Doubt Us tier. The Golden State Warriors, who are 2-0 with Jimmy Butler. He's alleviated Steph of playmaking duties. He's alleviated Steph of all these coverages. Steph has been outstanding since Jimmy got there. I think he's like over 30 a night in both games. The Warriors are 10th in defensive rating, which is encouraging because that just shows you that they just don't score enough. And I think that's really important for teams in the West because not a lot of teams in the West play defense, in that capacity. Quinn Post, their center, a new dimension. He's a big man that stretches the floor for them. I'm not too informative about his defensive capabilities to, defend the rim, playing drop coverage, defending the pick and roll, all that stuff. But as a unit, 10th in defensive rating, that's nothing to slouch about. And that's across the entire year. And I've been saying numerous times that, the Golden State Warriors are a catastrophe, dumpster fire, all that stuff. I've said numerous stuff about like Steph Curry struggling, him maybe being washed. I've said all sorts of stuff. So I've been coming at them, but they're really playing a good brand of basketball since Jimmy got there. I'm worried about their bench a little bit, their bench scoring, but they're Golden State. Steve Kerr's gonna get those boys right. So yeah, I'm definitely, I feel like this is the right tier for them. The Miami Heat. The Miami Heat underlying storyline is they have a ton of depth, insane amount of depth. You have Bam, Hero, the big guy Ware. You got Terry Rozier. You have Jamie Jaquez Jr., Highsmith, Davion Mitchell, point of attack guy. I like the guys. Oh, Andrew Wiggins. They have a good group, a real good group. And what I like most about that group is they defend. They have guys who like to defend. Bam, Wiggins, Davion Mitchell, Ware, Jaquez. They're gonna compete. Anyone that knows Spoelstra, I think you would expect that any Spoelstra-led team is going to be competing on that end of the floor. So I'm not sure where everything lines up in terms of lineups and rotations. I'm sure he's still figuring that out too. But I definitely like the depth on this team. Definitely something I want to keep an eye out on. The Orlando Magic. The only reason I kept this team on there is because of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. Franz Wagner has been insane. He is literally 25, 5 and 5, shooting 46% from the field. Definitely someone you want to look out for. Paolo Banchero and Wagner, for that matter, they were recovering from, I think they both suffered oblique injuries on opposite ends of the bodies. Very odd. Two of their best players, they do a lot of stuff for them outside of defending. They do basically all the shot creation, all the initiating, all the scoring. They handle, I want to say 85 to 90% of that, that load. Keeping them here just because they like to play defense. And what they did last year to the Cavs, forcing them 7 games, and now, all of a sudden the Cavs are supposed to be this juggernaut team. I definitely didn't want to disrespect them. I felt like this was the right tier for them. They play a real brand of basketball. And, if you're going to play defense, then you're going to be in any game. So, regardless of your opponent. Next tier, I have the Contender Party Crashers. In this tier, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Milwaukee Bucks, Los Angeles Lakers, Houston Rockets, New York Knicks, the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Starting off with the Cleveland Cavaliers, I know they had that tough loss at home versus Boston. These are the steps they need to take to establishing themselves as legit, East contenders. Are they an East contender right now? Yes. Just because, A, they pulled off that DeAndre Hunter trade, a spot that they've tried to upgrade, a spot that Georges Niang, Karis LeVert, not necessarily that archetype. They're kind of both tweeners for what the Cavs needed in that position in the starting lineup. DeAndre Hunter's, he's had a pretty good year. Shout out to my boy Adrian. We were going back and forth about this when the trade went down. I thought the deal was just too expensive. Those two guys, 3 seconds and 2 pick swaps, I thought that was a lot just for DeAndre Hunter. Will it matter? Maybe. I mean, slight overpay for, necessities, so I guess I understand it, but it just felt like an overpay. I'm not going to lie to you. And, as the trade, was finalized, and I'm just reading different discourse around different platforms and stuff, I came to the conclusion that, you know what, it makes sense. This guy in the playoffs, he's given Tatum, he's given Brown, not like problems, but he's been very serviceable. He's been productive. He shot the 3-ball pretty well. And that guy at that size, 6'8", that's the type of guy you want to throw at Tatum. That's another guy you want to throw at Brown. And I'm mentioning Brown and Tatum because that's just where the Cavs want to mirror themselves. They want to basically align themselves next to the Celtics. And I'm sure after that game, they could see, what spot we need to upgrade. I'm sure that wing spot is what they've kept their eyes out on recently. The Minnesota Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards is 31 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists in the new year, shooting 42% from 3 on 10-plus attempts. Rob Dillingham has gone going. Najree's been playing a strong brand of basketball. 8th best net rating in the new year. I thought the Timberwolves were going downwards. They seem to be going upwards. Led by Anthony Edwards, I can't put any limitations on this team. I do think they're one shot creator short. But at the same time, who knows with Rob Dillingham? Who knows with Dante DiVincenzo? He's been out recently. They've missed him. I'm sure if you add the Dante DiVincenzo, Rob Dillingham, let's say Rob cooks up in the playoffs a little bit in like 12-minute spurts, you'll see what happens. I mean, I just think that Mike Conley is just in a new phase of his career, and I know he's still like a necessity to some things that they need to do, especially on the defensive end. Because, if you put Rob in certain spots, he's just going to get targeted and hunted all game long. And I'm from a playoff setting, at least. Julius Randle just got hurt, I think, like last week. Kind of a bummer. But I still think the Timberwolves, just because of what they did to the Nuggets last year, I think they're very well capable of spoiling anyone's party. So I feel like this category is perfect for them. The Milwaukee Bucks just suffered a Giannis Antetokounmpo injury to his calf. He's going to be out or reevaluated within the next couple weeks. Just added Kuzma. I'm kind of worried about them shrinking the floor. Middleton, I know he's in a new phase in his career, but despite, 2 ankle surgeries, he was kind of productive for them in the playoffs last year. And he's a dead-eye shooter. You take that wrinkle away from Milwaukee, now I feel like it's going to bring back the likelihood of teams attempting to build a wall in front of Giannis. And for those of you that know, Giannis has completely taken away the three-point game from his shot diet. He's just not shooting threes this year. Which, in some ways to look at it, that's a strength because now he's basically Shaq. He's just dribbling down to the lane, putting his shoulder into you. The guy's a freak of nature, and he's shooting an insane percentage from the field. I think he's shooting north of 60%. I think for the second year in a row. I think he shot 60% last year, too, before he got hurt. So, Kuzma, who hasn't shot the ball well. I know he had a good first game in Milwaukee. In the loss to the Warriors, he played well. He had like 21 points, 6 boards. He's going to rebound the ball. I think he's actually a very underrated, secondary passer, playmaker. He can pass out of the post. Very willing passer. I think that dimension, I think he's going to give Giannis some easier looks, but just from stretching the floor, I think they're going to miss Middleton a little bit more than people are anticipating. So I got to see it first, but, Giannis is Giannis. This team was borderline, in the category above. So just because of the injury, getting Kuzma, the floor might shrink a little bit. I definitely want to keep them in the contender party crashers. Los Angeles Lakers, who just pulled off Luka Doncic. LeBron and Luka last night. I think Luka had like 14, 5, and 8 or something like that. Played like 22 minutes. Him and LeBron were already showing flashes in the half court. Luka's coming off pin downs. LeBron's giving him the rock. He's throwing lobs to Jackson Hayes. Like it already looks too easy for them. I don't even know why the league did this. I just don't know why. I don't know why Nico Harrison did this. I don't know why. I really don't. You just extended LeBron's career by another 2-3 years because you just gave him the prince, Luka Doncic. Before acquiring Luka Doncic, the Lakers were already playing a really good brand of basketball. 4th best net in the new year. They had some big wins against the Knicks and the Celtics. I believe both those games, the Knicks game was without Anthony Davis. That's when LeBron just went, crazy. And then against the Celtics, they had Davis. So Redick has them playing really well, a really good brand of basketball. So they recently just signed Alex Len. I know they were trying to get Mark Williams. That trade ended up being caca because of the physical. Charlotte Hornets were trying to be some Nigerian scammers, trying to scam LeBron James and, Pelinka and all those boys. That would have been crazy. Mark Williams is a hell of an athlete, but yeah, him not past that physical is definitely a red flag. But, Alex Len, he'll come in. He'll do what he needs to do. Luka and LeBron, they're going to make the best version out of him. But, yeah, I definitely am a little scared. Dorian Finney, previous camaraderie with Luka Doncic, Vanderbilt. This team is borderline a team. If LeBron can hold up and we're getting like last year's Luka, and, with the Luka stuff again, enough with all he put on too much weight. The guy was like 28, 7, and 8 to start the year. If he was so out of shape, I feel like this would be such a glaring issue. I feel like this is just almost a made-up storyline. I know they gave him this extended absence to play himself into shape, and he injured his calf for the 3rd time. But that doesn't mean you give him to the most conditioned NBA superstar since Michael Jordan in LeBron James. You don't do that. A conference rival, Nico? Really? That was your plan? And now that's biting you on the hand because now Anthony Davis is hurt, Gafford is hurt, and now you left Kyrie alone to face all these double coverages. Kyrie can't even beat the Kings on a Tuesday night now because you flipped Luka Doncic. Tough. Very tough. I have high expectations for the Lakers. Just from an IQ standpoint, LeBron and Luka together is insane. So, Austin Reeves is already just starting to turn up. I saw a tweet about him buying VC and the leg sleeves and the arm sleeve and the headband and him spending too much VC on the court. Like, yeah, they're just, they're in a different mode right now. So the Lakers are definitely probably the West team I would keep my eye on to like just trend upwards like rapidly. I think they'd be the first choice. Houston Rockets, a team that's trending downwards, but I kept them in this tier because they play defense. And Ime Udoka is going to continue to get the best out of his guys. 16th in defensive rating since January 1st. Still 4th overall. Jalen Green has been a lot more consistent. I do worry about when he does face certain coverages, certain blitzes, like who's the next guy going to be to help him out. Not sure if I'd call Dylan Brooks the most ideal creator. Fred VanVleet is, a smaller guy. I mean, he's been to the playoffs, he's been there, but he's only been asked to, create in supplemental, moments. I'm just not sure what they're going to do when Jalen Green gets blitzed and he goes like 4 for 13 in a game 2 in the first round. Because it might happen. I just, you know what I mean? The guy's never been to the playoffs before. I can't rule out anything. So definitely something I want to keep an eye out on is their creation. If it was up to me, I would just give Amen Thompson the ball a lot more just so he gets more comfortable in that downhill aspect and that pick and roll with Şengün. That would probably be my counter to, obviously, what I'm saying with the Jalen Green and the double coverages because Jalen Green is their most scouted perimeter threat. Teams are going to scout for him first when it comes to perimeter ball threats. When it comes to Amen Thompson, he's definitely creeping up the list, but his biggest strength is getting downhill. And, he's already shown that he can He can make plays on big time players like that game winner against Jaylen Brown. So Amen is not afraid. So I definitely think if you optimize him correctly, that might help Jalen out in the long run, especially going into the playoffs. Şengün too, with those dribble handoffs. And Thompson is a very willing passer. You might need to flirt with some small ball Amen Thompson, potentially screening, rolling out of the short roll. Very willing passer. He's going to find guys, Cam Whitmore, Şengün. They don't shoot the ball prolific from three, but I feel like you definitely need to get a little creative with their half-court offense as the second half approaches, because now teams kind of know what they're getting from them. So I had them. New York Knicks. Towns is having a big year. They got 2 All-Stars starting in their starting lineup in Towns and Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson has been really, really productive, playing at a special level over the past couple weeks. They needed that win just like Cleveland. I would have loved to see them get that win at home against the Celtics. I would have loved to see that. That would show me I can take you a lot more serious. I like the OG Anunoby move. I like the Mikal Bridges move. You need some wings that can stretch the floor, guard different positions. That just makes sense, especially under Tibbs, who plays guys that play defense. But I'm worried about their bench. I'm not sure if Cam Payne and McBride are... I don't know what to expect from them in the playoffs. I know, Cam Payne, I don't want to disrespect him too much. I mean, he's been to the playoffs a couple of times with some teams. More so well known for his starting. Was he starting in the finals? No, he wasn't starting in the finals. I think he was a 6th man for Phoenix Suns, right? He was a 6th man in 2021. He has some experience in the playoff setting, but for the Knicks, those non-Jalen Brunson minutes, I don't know where you're going with that. Tibbs is he's gonna play these guys into the ground. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I don't know, because they may need to play those extra minutes because lack of, shot creators off the bench. But also, when you think about it, might not be the best because they did lose guys last year because of that. So, yeah. If the New York Knicks had beaten the Celtics primetime at home, I probably would have had them in the next category because they've been playing really well. I'm going to keep them in the party crashers category. Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies. Ja Morant. Having an okay year. I have been giving him credit for his less is more approach, similar to Donovan Mitchell. Not shooting the ball a ton. His numbers are down from a volume standpoint. But the team is winning games. Can't get on him for that. Best player on a team that is second in the West. And I know Jaren Jackson, I've said on numerous occasions, has been the Grizzlies' best player. That's because he's been available. This is still Ja Morant's team, still a franchise cornerstone. I do worry about him in the half court in the playoffs when it comes to building a wall, forcing him to take pull-up jump shots. And this is where I think, rookie Zach Edey, I feel like this is where he comes into play because he's going to be very vital. He's such a bruiser that I think those screens are going to be very, very, very important for Morant. Just to establish a pull-up jump shooting game, get into those floaters. He's a phenomenal athlete. Everyone knows he's going to get to the rim. The refs don't even like giving him calls. He's shooting his second fewest free throws per game since his rookie year. That doesn't sound like a Ja issue because I actually watch Grizzlies games. He goes to the rim, not getting calls. Not sure why. It's actually pretty fishy. T. Morant just got ejected the other night because I guess he was mouthing off to the officials. Not gonna lie, not to be biased, but I think I'm with T. Ja doesn't get calls. Don't know why. And I'm not sure if it's because of his troubles off the court, but I remember seeing a video from Tim Donaghy, the referee that got in trouble for gambling and whatnot. And he came out and said that referees, I think one particular game, grouped up and decided they weren't going to give Allen Iverson calls. Crazy. Very crazy not to give Allen Iverson calls because he was just a fearless 3-level scorer that always went to the rim. Fearless athlete. Did not back down from any big man in the paint. So for you to decide not to give him calls, kind of fishy for me, especially with Ja Morant, who doesn't play identically to Allen Iverson, but when you talk about, how small he is, him going into the air, his above the rim mentality, he has some Iverson in him, hitting the floor a lot. So I just find that a little fishy that his free throw takes are a little bit down than in years past. And if you really, really want to dig even deeper on the metric, if you look at the 10 games he played last year before he tore his labrum, his free throw takes and attempts are higher by like 1 or 2 compared to this year. Like, his free throw attempts this year are just down. Don't know why. And it's not because of gameplay. And I watch the games. It's not gameplay. He just doesn't get calls for some odd reason. But anyways, I do worry about his half-court game. That's the only thing I'm worried about with John Morant. Is, are opposing teams going to try and build a wall and force him to take perimeter jump shots? Now, from the three-point line, in the playoffs, career-wise, he's a pretty good three-point shooter. The metrics back that up. But I'm talking more so intermediate. Will he be able to consistently demand the respect of defenses going over the pick and roll instead of under? And can he hit that jumper consistently? Can he hit that elbow jumper 15 out of 20 times if they give it to him? That's what I'm going to keep my eye out on. Because everyone else, I mean, yeah, you could point to, Jalen Wells, Zach Edey, them being rookies, them being dependent on, to defend and be serviceable on a playoff setting in their first year. Definitely a lot to ask for, so probably something you'd worry about. But at the same time, this team has been one of the best cohesive two-way units in the league, so I'm not super worried. And they have guys coming back, like Vince Williams Jr. just came back. He's going to do all the stuff that they're asking Jalen Wells to. So even if Jalen Wells kind of comes back down to earth, you have a guy in Vince Williams Jr. who's been there a couple years who can come and fulfill that role for you. Desmond Bane, he's been dinged up. I'm pretty sure it's a minor injury, but you definitely want to hope he'll be okay. Trip J, Jaren Jackson Jr., like I just said a couple minutes ago, how he's been the Grizzlies' best player. If he makes All-NBA and All-Star or is named Defensive Player of the Year and or MVP, I believe, I think he's up for a lucrative 5-year Supermax deal. Something just to keep an eye out on, because he did meet with them in the offseason before the season, and they decided to revisit contract talks this offseason. Yeah, shout out to Trip J, man. He's just been playing great. Like I already told you guys, I had him starting in my All-Star team. That take is not looking that great because LeBron decided to just, turn the clock back to 2007. But, I thought Tripp deserved it because he's been the most available star for the Grizzlies. He's been the most dependent on both ends of the floor. If you watch the games, they're giving him the ball to create shots in the half court, whether it's a hook or isolate or whatever. They're just letting him rock out on the offensive end, and he's actually taken a leap offensively as a scorer. So averaging a career high in points per game. So I'm very proud of Tripp. I think he's just been awesome this year. Next category, driving to June. 3 teams. Boston Celtics, Denver Nuggets, OKC Thunder. Going to start off with the OKC Thunder. Arguably the best 5 right now. They just got Chet back. I forget who they smacked last night. They smacked someone. I think it was New Orleans. They smacked them by like 30. I think they were up 30 by like the third quarter. Team just enjoys playing with each other. They enjoy seeing each other eat, succeed. Chet just seamlessly comes in. I think he had like 5 blocks. And that's the thing with them, is that he's going to protect the rim at an all-star level, and then he's going to give them a dimension that they don't have with Hartenstein, and that's a guy that they can go to create off the dribble. Say if Shea is having a tough night shooting, which is pretty rare, or if J-Dub has a tough defensive matchup and hasn't gone and going from the field. They have a lot of guys to go to. J-Dub, all-star, one of the best two-way players in the league already. He didn't make my all-star team, but he was knocking on the door. I think I had Kyrie over him or Booker. But, yeah, he's just been great. He's been a great complimentary piece. He's a star on that team. Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe, 2 other guys I've been super impressed with. I was watching highlights against the Grizzlies. Those guys just move the ball, like, all the time. They just move the ball. Besides, like, the Shea isolations or the J-Dub, pick and roll or dribble handoff, those guys really do use each other. They're the only team outside of the Celtics and the Nuggets, given the tier, that uses each other. They really do use and enhance each other on the floor. And it's very empowering. They play a beautiful, beautiful brand of basketball. They might win like 65, 67 games this year. I wouldn't be shocked. Denver Nuggets. Nikola Jokic is still the best player in the world. This might be, because currently speaking, Shea is going to get MVP as of right now. what Jokic is doing is probably going to be the best MVP runner-up season, maybe of NBA history, possibly. What he's doing for the Nuggets, third in offensive rating, sixth in net. Westbrook has been out, but guys like Watson and Strother and, Christian Braun, they've just been filling in and, they've been playing well, don't get me wrong, but Jokic has just been outstanding at just elevating those guys on that end of the court. That team was a team that everyone was worried about coming into the season, and now here we are. So, yeah, Nuggets. The only reason why I have them in the driving to June category is because they have the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic. Last team, my Boston Celtics. Can we get some more Jason Tatum usage? Please. We're 12-1 in 2025 when Jason Tatum shoots more than 20 times. Let's just do that. Let's just let our best player just take shots. And I understand he's such a selfless superstar. He can go defend the best player for a game. He can go, play in the post, be a point forward. He can do so many different things. You want to have him defend the small ball five like he did against Lively in the finals. Cool. But at the end of the day, what I've seen the past couple weeks is this is the best Tatum I've seen from a comfort standpoint. He is so fluid and lethal right now. I think we need to double down and take advantage of it. Like, he is in a mode I haven't seen him in. Like, he's had previous MVP level campaigns where the numbers are there, the Celtics win games. Believe me, I get it. But he's hitting some shots where I was like, he was not taking that shot that confident, that comfortable last year. He had a shot against Terry Rozier against Miami. He was just dancing. And then all of a sudden, and everyone knows he loves the step back, but everyone knows like the size up into the step back. This was like a tween dance. He was just, playing with the joystick a little bit. And then all of a sudden, he just faded away and took this deep three. And I was like, oh my God. Like, is he okay? He had another drive where he went to the rim. He crossed a couple of times and he crossed, I think he was Jaquez, crossed going left, comes down the lane and he finished going left but finished with the right, finessed and one, and then started flexing. And I was just like, all right, this is the zero I know. This is the Tatum that everyone knows. Yeah, this is the best I've seen from him. Let's just keep it going. Derek White is shooting the ball a lot more better. Interesting, the Celtics have a higher net rating and defensive rating than last year. The year where we basically broke all advanced metric charts. Fun team. We missed Jalen last night against the Miami Heat, but it seemed like it didn't even matter. So, yeah, let's just continue to feed Tatum. If it means that he has to take 22 shots and Brown takes 13, 14, 15 shots, cool. Or if they both want to take 20, that's fine. Because I know Drew's been a little dinged up. Our bench is a little bit thinner from a shot creating standpoint than last year. Shout out Jaden Springer, my guy. Hope you killed in Houston, man, with Ime. I know Ime likes to play guys that like to play defense, and Jaden Springer certainly likes to play defense. But, yeah, Tatum is just in a different zone right now, and it's inspiring to see. It's very inspiring to see. I think he's just in a different bag, a different bag right now, and I love to see it. And I still think, not only does the East go through the Celtics, but the whole NBA still goes through Boston. I mean, we're the defending champs. So that still holds its weight for sure. And I just love that they're playing like it. They're playing like champions right now. Like that game against Cleveland, they won with defense. It wasn't just a Tatum 46 special. Like, no, those guys, in fact, now that I think about it, that Cleveland game, they didn't even shoot the ball well. Like, I think Tatum had like 23, but he took like 20 shots. Jalen had like 15, 6 and 7, something similar to that. It wasn't a great overpowering like scoring game. Those guys came in and they decided to play defense. I mean, they held the Cavs to 18 points in the first quarter. Like, that's saying something. That's sending a message on the road too, in Cleveland. And then the New York game, you have, Tatum going for 40. Those are the messages we want to send to teams. Like, listen, this shit still goes through us. Just remember that. So, shout out to the C's. Yeah, driving to June category, Celtics, Nuggets, Thunder. Those are the three teams right now that I can see holding up the Larry O'Brien. Everyone else, for numerous reasons, I kind of just deep dive this crazy, but yeah, for numerous reasons, I think that's where we stand. The All-Star break is coming up. A lot of basketball left for sure, but yeah, that is my title hierarchy. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Subscribe below. Like I said, I don't say that enough. I promise. I have guests coming. Like I said, I got all these juices I gotta get out, stuff I gotta get out there. So appreciate you guys for joining me on another episode of Nass the Pod Season 4. You guys have a good week. Stay warm out there. Subscribe below. Follow Nass the Pod Twitter, Nass the Pod Instagram. I'm trying to market that a little bit more because I see that's where I can get all my content out there to you guys. But yeah, man, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Have a good one.